Welcome back to the Huddle YouTube channel. I'm your host, Owen, and today we're going to be going over my day one draft grades. However, instead of making one long extended video where you're going to have to sit there and sift through each team and try to find where your team is talked about so you can watch about 5 minutes of a 40-minute video, I'm going to make individual videos for each team that picked in the first round. Now, if you were a team that had multiple picks, I'm going to talk about you guys in one video together with all your picks in there. If you just have one pick, it's going to be a shorter one. I'm just going to give my thoughts on your guys' pick and what you should be doing going forward with the draft. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. So we're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks in this one, and we're going to loop together their 5th and 20th overall pick, and we're going to give them a joint grade for that because I feel like if you have multiple picks in the first round, they need to complement each other or work off each other in a little bit. So we're going to talk about Devon Witherspoon at 5, cornerback out of Illinois, and at 20, we're going to talk about JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Let's start with Witherspoon. Now, this was the popular spot for Jalen Carter to go. I felt like interior defensive line is more of what they needed, especially because they had corners when it came to Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. I was a Kobe Bryant fan last year. He was coming out of Cincinnati. However, I do think that he could be a good three quarterback or a slot cornerback. And if you get a Devon Witherspoon to pair with Tariq Woolen, ain't nobody throwing on you. And this is a team that's going to go against the San Francisco 49ers, who have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and all these receiving options, as well as beating you in the run game, which is why I kind of thought they'd go like Amazi Smith or something at 20, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, I think they are preparing themselves to face off against these high-flying NFC teams because the NFC is weak. They think this could be our time. Geno's looking good. Let's put weapons around him, and let's build our defense. And you know what? They're probably in the philosophy of coverage over pass rush, which is a kind of an argument that's been going on for years with the team building and things like that. So Devon Witherspoon pairing with Tariq Woolen is an insane combo, and then having Kobe Bryant, who had a good season last year and won like defensive back of the year his final year at Cincinnati, as your slot corner, I think you're overqualified in coverage now. And they're going to have a lot more coverage pressure, so I'm not too mad about them not going Jalen Carter because the fact that their secondary is going to be so good, they'll generate pressure just from that, kind of compensates for that. Now let's talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was currently, and still is, my number 1 wide receiver in his draft class, and he went number 1 in the draft class as the wide receiver, so that matches what I projected. It's kind of a steal for me because I had Njigba kind of in the teens when it comes to my draft grades, and I really thought he could play outside, but he'd be most comfortable inside of the slot, so I think personally the Seahawks was the best place for him to go. I was a big D. Eskridge fan when he was coming out. He hasn't really developed how I thought he would, so having a guy who's your outside receiver, deep threat when it comes to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who's also more of an outside wide receiver, deep threat. Now you have a guy who can really work the middle of the field and work with that space, really give a pretty good slot option to Geno Smith. I think this was a great pick for them. Again, I think they probably should have went like Amazi Smith, really reinforce that defense. But you went defense with your first pick, and you could probably find a run stuffer D tackle like in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe a Siaki Ika, really just to fill that quota because that's kind of where they're lacking on their defense. So overall, I think Devon Witherspoon makes your secondary one of the best in the league. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba went to the perfect place for him where he's not going to be asked to be an outside receiver who wins with separation down the field because he's not really that big of a burner. So winning with route running out the slot, working more space, I think that's where Jackson Smith-Njigba, at least early on in his career, is going to succeed. So I think this is the best place for him. And really, I think the combo here is going to be an A grade for me. Just for the lack of identifying run defense, which is one of their weakest things last year, especially with having to go against San Francisco, but they still have time to fix that. I think the two they went with were the 2 other options I think they should have went with the first round outside of run defense. They probably could have got another corner help, really make that one of the best groups in the league, which they have. And then JSN just as a great compliment in adding more weapons for Geno Smith. So yeah, I'll go A, maybe an A- for it together, but yeah, that's my grade for the Seattle Seahawks draft class on day 1.